Sally Kirkland, Golden Globe winner. Dead at 84. A life in the spotlight and the shadows. It's 1988, and the camera zooms in on Sally Kirkland as she steps onto the stage, her breath shaky, but her resolve unshakable. The spotlight blinds her momentarily, but she's used to this feeling. She's been in the game for decades, 25 years to be exact, but tonight, it's different. She's being recognized for a role that challenges every part of her identity. The role of a woman pushed aside by the industry she's given her life to. She accepts the Golden Globe for Best Actress. A triumph that feels like the beginning of something new. A second chance in a career that had already seen it all. But behind the applause, there's a deeper story at play. One filled with pain, personal sacrifice, and the kind of vulnerability few would dare to reveal. Fast forward to the present, and Sally Kirkland, now 84 years old, has passed away after battling health challenges, including dementia and a series of physical struggles that began decades ago. Her journey, from an Oscar-nominated actress to an advocate for women's health, is one of resilience, but also one of quiet battles fought outside the limelight. Tonight, we honor her legacy, exploring her rise to fame, the struggles she faced in silence, and the profound impact she made on those around her. Sally Kirkland was never meant to fade into obscurity. Even as a young woman, she exuded a quiet determination, a steady confidence that would serve her throughout her life. Born in 1942, Sally was a child of Hollywood's golden age, a time when cinema was a magical world that seemed to exist only in the realm of dreams. But for her, it was a calling. From an early age, Sally was drawn to the arts, an only child raised in a world of intellectuals and creatives. Her mother, a prominent social figure, and her father, an accomplished sculptor, nurtured Sally's love for performance. By the time she was in her 20s, Sally had already decided that her destiny was to be a part of that glittering world. Her career began in the early 60 seconds when she found herself rubbing elbows with some of the most influential names in entertainment. But it was Andy Warhol who first saw something in her that no one else did, a raw, unrefined authenticity that was captivating. Warhol, always ahead of his time, recognized in Sally the potential for something bigger. She appeared in several of his projects, including Women in Revolt, 1971, a film that reflected the intersection of art, feminism, and social change. For many, Warhol's work was an enigma. But for Sally, it was a springboard. The quirky, avant-garde artist saw in her something that the industry didn't quite understand yet, a unique voice. As the years went by, Sally's career blossomed, but it wasn't without sacrifice. By the late 1980 seconds, she had already clocked in over 150 plays, 40 television shows, and 26 movies. She wasn't a household name yet, but she was respected in the industry, one of those faces you knew, even if you couldn't always place the name. That all changed when Sally won the Golden Globe for her performance in Anna, 1987, a film about an aging actress struggling with the realities of growing older in a youth-obsessed industry. She played the role with such depth and authenticity that it resonated with anyone who had ever felt invisible or forgotten. Sally was 45 at the time, and the win felt like an overdue recognition of her years of hard work. It was a triumph, not just for her, but for anyone who had ever been overlooked, pushed aside, or underestimated. Yet, as Sally basked in the glow of her victory, there was an underlying truth that even her closest friends and colleagues didn't fully understand. Despite the accolades, Sally's personal life was filled with quiet struggles that no one saw behind the scenes. The film world she had given her life to, with all its glamour and reward, was also a place that chewed people up and spat them out. For Sally, the pressure of maintaining a youthful image took a toll on her body and mind. The darker side of Hollywood had crept into her life, and she was about NHTO face battles she couldn't escape. It was a Wednesday afternoon when Sally's world began to unravel. The day began like any other coffee in hand. A quiet morning spent at home, reflecting on the years behind her. Sally had lived through so much fame, rejection, love, and loss. and at 45, she still had plenty of fight left in her. But this day was different. She had started feeling a persistent ache in her joints, something that she couldn't shake. She'd been dealing with fatigue for months, but this felt worse, deeper, more unrelenting. Her body had begun betraying her in ways that were hard to ignore. Sally was no stranger to health problems. By this time, she had been battling what doctors would later identify as chronic fatigue syndrome, a condition that left her exhausted, her body in constant pain. She had already undergone multiple tests and treatments, but nothing seemed to bring her relief. She had spent years living in a state of constant discomfort, pushing herself to keep up with her career while her body slowly deteriorated. At one point, she had even undergone breast implant surgery in an attempt to meet Hollywood's physical standards. But over the years, she realized that the very thing she had done to help her career was now contributing to her decline. She was riddled with guilt and confusion, but she was determined to reclaim her health. It was during this time that Sally made a decision that would change her life forever. She would have the implants removed. The decision wasn't easy. It came with its own set of challenges, both physical and emotional. The process wasn't just about removing silicone. It was about reclaiming her body, her health, and, in many ways, her identity. Sally knew that she could no longer pretend to be something she wasn't. The toll of trying to keep up with Hollywood's expectations had taken its ultimate cost. On the day she made the decision, she was overwhelmed with emotions, fear, hope, uncertainty. She knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she also knew it was the only way forward. She was determined to face the consequences of her choices, no matter how painful they might be. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a long journey filled with even more unexpected twists. It was the middle of the night when the phone call came. Sally had been feeling the weight of her decision to remove the breast implants, hoping for a brighter future but bracing for the reality of what it would mean. The recovery had been difficult, physically and emotionally. But as she lay in bed one evening, the phone rang, jolting her out of the quiet cocoon of self-reflection. On the other end was her doctor, his voice tinged with concern. He told her that her lab results were back, and they weren't good. Her immune system had begun to react to the silicone in her implants in ways that were far more dangerous than she had anticipated. The particles from the silicone had started to break free and circulate through her bloodstream, causing a series of systemic issues. It was a phenomenon she had never expected, and one that shook her to the core. She wasn't just sick, she was poisoning herself slowly. The news hit Sally hard. It wasn't just a physical pain that she had to contend with now, but a psychological weight, years of hidden suffering, compounded by a profound sense of betrayal. The very thing she had turned to in order to feel whole, in order to meet the industry's expectations, had become a burden. Sally would later describe it as a moment when everything she thought she understood about herself, her career, and her body, shattered. As word spread among close friends and family, the reaction was a mix of disbelief, sympathy, and frustration. Sally's strength had always been a pillar for those around her. She had lived through so many challenges before, faced down rejection and judgment, and come out stronger. But this was different. The emotional toll of not only battling chronic health issues, but also confronting the reality of what the implants had done to her body was immense. And yet, Sally remained focused on one thing: finding a way forward. There was a strange kind of quiet determination in her. She wasn't one to let life's obstacles define her. Even in the face of health complications, she knew she had a purpose beyond the silver screen. It was then that Sally began documenting her journey, hoping that her story might help other women who had unknowingly subjected themselves to the same silent suffering. This, too, became part of her recovery process, finding meaning in the pain and using it to help others navigate their own struggles. The media, however, didn't see it that way. While Sally's health challenges were deeply personal, the media was obsessed with her career. The flashing headlines would occasionally come with stories about her latest role or comments on her aging in Hollywood. But what few understood was the strength it took for Sally to continue working through her physical decline. To them, Sally was just another actress in the twilight of her career. What they missed was that Sally was a woman who had fought for every inch of her success, and who now found herself fighting for something far more precious: her health. Sally's journey was beginning to reveal itself as something more than just a battle with illness. It was becoming a testament to her resilience. She was now not only an actress, but an advocate. She began speaking out about the dangers of breast implants, something no one had really dared to do at the time. She wanted to use her platform to warn others, to be the voice for the women who were too afraid to speak up about the physical and emotional tolls of such procedures. The next few years were a blur of recovery, reflection, and advocacy. Sally underwent a series of medical treatments, some successful, some not. The fatigue remained, a constant companion in her life, but she never gave in. She continued to work, taking roles that allowed her to explore deeper aspects of her own experiences. She had learned a powerful lesson: that the body's betrayal could not define who she was. Her identity had never been just about appearance. It was about voice, about presence, and about the strength to rise above. As Sally's health deteriorated, it became clear that she was not just grappling with physical challenges. Behind the scenes, there was a psychological battle unfolding, one that mirrored the complexity of her life. While Sally sought answers to her mounting health problems, the world around her seemed increasingly disinterested in the details. To Hollywood, she was a woman on the fringes of relevance, an actress from another era, trying to fit into a landscape that no longer had space for her. But Sally had never been one to shy away from challenges. What began as a medical crisis would, over time, reveal itself to be a much larger, darker struggle. In the final years of her life, Sally had come to see her career not just as a series of roles and accolades, but as a lifelong conversation about who we are as human beings. She had played characters who were flawed, who were broken, who were searching for meaning in the same way that she was. And in the end, it was this shared vulnerability, the recognition that we all carry our own wounds, that made her work resonate so deeply with audiences. She had not just portrayed women on screen, she had become a symbol of the resilience and complexity of women everywhere. As she reflected on her legacy, Sally often spoke of the importance of embracing life with all its imperfections. In her final years, she was not the Hollywood starlet she once was. She was something much more complex, a woman who had weathered personal battles, had triumphed over adversity, and had found a way to continue creating and contributing to the world, even as she faced her own mortality. She was at peace with the idea that her life, much like her work, had not been perfect, but it had been real. Sally's death at 84 years old in hospice was not just the loss of an actress. It was the loss of a woman who had lived her life on her own terms, who had refused to accept the limitations placed on her by others, and who had stood up for what was right, even when it was incredibly difficult. Her death marked the end of an era for many of her fans, but also the beginning of a new understanding of what it meant to be a woman in Hollywood and a woman in the world. In the years to come, her story would continue to inspire others to fight for their health, their rights, and their voices to be heard. And while Sally may no longer be physically with us, her legacy would live on in the countless women who had been empowered by her courage. As we reflect on Sally Kirkland's incredible journey, it serves as a reminder that true strength is not just in the accolades or the fame we achieve, but in the quiet perseverance through life's darkest moments. The stories we tell are more than just entertainment. They are reflections of the struggles we all face, and the hope that even in our most difficult moments, we can find the strength to continue. Here at the final footage, we believe in honoring the lives of those who have shaped the world in meaningful ways. Sally Kirkland's life, like those of so many others we explore, was a journey filled with both triumphs and tragedies. But in the end, it was the way she faced her challenges, with unwavering resolve and compassion, that truly defined her. If you've been moved by Sally Kirkland's story, we invite you to subscribe to the final footage and join us as we continue to delve into the real, often untold, stories of those who have lived extraordinary lives, stories that resonate, that challenge, and that inspire. We hope you'll reflect on what it means to live a life of purpose and to stand for what you believe in, no matter the obstacles. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to bringing you more stories that matter.